how to explain to our members that people who work for the party are neglected, while those that did nothing are enjoying the fruit of their labor. You know, when I saw this tweet on the Guardian, the first thing I asked myself is that this is public admittance that you don't even have structure as a political party. And that's why all this is happening. Okay. Majority of political parties that we have in Nigeria, sad to say, they kind of run a franchise system. Yeah, some people might have claimed that I have two parties and this. But why those two parties are you even talking about? Go into PDP, go into APC. It's clear these guys don't have structure in place. They just run a franchise system whereby the biggest bidder in a particular state, in a particular local government, becomes the leader. And as a result, you find a situation whereby they have this type of candidate representing them and messing up the entire system. Okay. So,
one moment, please. Now, I wanted to take it from the point of view of
the lawyers.
Of the lawyers, yeah. Because there are processes, there are procedures. Lawyers take a degree, they don't end it there. They go on to law school. So I'm just taking it for granted that they are highly schooled. But who is responsible for this attempt at going from the point of view of one of the justices to desecrate the whole system?
Okay, here is how the process works. You know, lawyers are not litigants, and this is very clear. Even to a rookie lawyer, he knows he's not a litigant. You are first and foremost a minister in the temple of justice. It means that you have a responsibility and a duty to place facts before the court and to assist the court in arriving at the just verdict or judgment. So you then have politicians who fail to do their job because it's the duty, core duty of a political party to ensure that their candidates are actually qualified to contest election. That's why you see the primaries in the United States is very bruising. You can't hide anything about yourself. Once you're on that stage, your opponents are going to come against you, communities, social groups, they are going to dig out everything about you and bring it. And if you are not qualified, you drop out of the race. You don't even have to go into the contest. So they then contest this election with impunity. The parties haven't failed to do their jobs. The candidates haven't failed to disclose relevant information to their political parties who didn't dig out this information. So they win or lose, and they go to court to litigate. Now, after the verdict, they are still dissatisfied.
Yes.
Because for a party to go as far as the Supreme Court,
yes,
the party believes that there's a case to be won. And so when you lose ordinarily, it's painful.
And so when you lose even there.
Yeah, when you lose there. So, but then, when you then go to lawyers to say, we lost this case at the Supreme Court, but we think that it was unjust, and we should go back. It's at that point that the professional ethics and knowledge of the lawyer should kick in by saying, excuse me, yes, we lost this case, but here are the grounds under which we can approach.
Mr. Curtis, okay, sorry, go on.
But here are the grounds that we can approach the Supreme Court. But you see what happened in this case is, one, the clients will come and they're desperate, prepared to pay any amount of money.
This is one of the issues.
So the lawyers want to take. Number two, the lawyers are in pursuit of history to say, I was one of the first few lawyers in this country that went to the Supreme Court and got the court to set aside its own judgment. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is what happened. Meanwhile, there should have been, and then the funny thing again, if you have observed, once they come out of the court, they then make statements to the press, address the press, say all the kind of things that they said in the court, and whip up sentiments. And those who don't understand what the true position of the law, we jump with those things. So you then find out that senior lawyers who should have stood in the gap to protect the Supreme Court were the one who took these briefs and went there. And that was why the court came very hard on them yesterday by saying, we are disappointed that these briefs even came from senior lawyers who ought to have known better.
And I think, you know, it's interesting to see that the lawyers are actually to pay a 10 million naira fine each.
Yes.
Maybe that will sort of jog the...
But they are not going to pay. Their clients will pay for them.
You see?
So they are not going to learn any lesson from
that. Maybe that will... Because people that don't even know the law, ordinary Nigerians that don't even know the law, first of all, were bemused when it was heard that, oh, you can appeal after the Supreme Court. We thought that was the final bus stop. And suddenly we were being re-educated. Talk about the miseducation. I remember that we were being miseducated that you can actually go beyond.
In 1 week, they filed about 6 cases for review.
One of them has withdrawn. And one of them has reversed.
Even the PDP started talking about going back to the court to review the judgment in the presidential election.
In the presidential election. So this was where they were now going to make a whole mockery.
Yeah, and I think that's where I want to make this point again, that I will still find it difficult to blame the lawyers, because at the end of the day, when you look about cases, judgment, it's still down to the individual, the opinion, the view they've made. Some of these lawyers have tend to make argument that they think is right by their own training and their background. So, but the point again is still that if you really look at it, this is not the problem for Supreme Court. This is not the problem even for the lawyers. I'm not trying to absolve them. This is the problem for the political class. And it's actually time we start digging into. And that's why for us as a party...
You can't expect the political class to play fair in our country.
But we can do our best possible, sir. Mr. Curtis just made an example of America.
I hear you, sir. I hear you, sir. But what I'm trying to say is that, look, let all of us that are quote-unquote untrained, we just come in here and we say, oh, is that all right? I fulfill this constitutional provision, I can do this. Let us carry on like that. But there are professionals who are highly trained. You can't go and be telling a doctor what your ideas are in relation to a situation that you have. Don't worry about your idea.
But you see,
I am knowledgeable. I spend time training.
Let me tell him what he's saying.
Let me still make my point finish, because you've had some time. The point I'm trying to make here is this, sir. If you try to put this in terms of a range, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying squarely it's only about the politician, but quite a lot of it has to do with us, the politicians.
So the politicians
I'm a politician now. Yeah, because at the end of the day, when you go to a lawyer, like he rightly said, he made a very nice point about, oh, some lawyers will likely say, oh, maybe because of money they want to take, they will take it. Some lawyers might even advise you that, oh, this is not possible. But because the defendant in this case is really keen about going to court. So how are you going to resolve that? You have thousands of lawyers. That's the point I'm making.
The problem I have is lawyers, and quite frankly, I am sold on the idea, lawyering being referred to as a noble profession, you know? So if we just start from there, the lawyers are shocking us. Anyhow, we'll spend some time here. Let's not waste too much time. The court has said that you won't desecrate, the judiciary, because that seems to be what
the other point I was going to make before we leave this issue is the fact that when you do this, you open the floodgates of everybody will come, even in Ngige and Obi can say, review our case. This was the case that people are finished serving.
This is it.
And then don't forget that the Supreme Court do not only give judgments in political matters, not only in elections.
Yes, they do other things.
There are cases, commerce, chieftaincy.
Some lasting 20 years.
Yes.
You explained.
How many times do you hear people coming back to the court and say, review your judgment? It's only when it has to do with
and we've taken democracy too far.
What happened is that,
you see, that
impunity.
Yes.
You understand? We do what we want to do. We have no respect for due process. We have no respect for even our own laws. And then we go to the Supreme Court and say, look, you must do it our way. Otherwise, the court is corrupt.
Well, I still think we don't have that kind of Supreme Court. Maybe what I'm doing here is maybe being a bit unprofessional and that I'm actually injecting my own opinion onto the whole matter. But I want to thank God that we don't have that kind of Supreme Court. We have the kind of Supreme Court that I said, you lawyers will pay 10 million naira each for this.
Yes, would you be able to say the same thing if the judgment had not gone the way you had wanted it? Maybe.
No,
we're all individual.
That was the point I made yesterday.
And that's why I don't want to talk about it.
I made the point yesterday.
Because we all have different views on this.
When the lawyers for the PDP candidate or the governor of Bayelsa came out, the lead counsel, Ustaz Usman San and Chris Uche, addressed the press and said, today, the Supreme Court did what was expected of the Supreme Court. We thank God for the kind of Supreme Court that we have.
But let's say in Imo, we're going to see what. So you see, this is the problem. Okay. This is where we, as a political party, both party, we tend to be very different. We are new and we are making our time. Like I was telling Mr. Curtis before we started the program, he talked about maybe two parties favored. But the question is this, how are you going to determine those two parties? And I stand here to be corrected. If PDP and APC can challenge us, do they have structure? You know, not just talking about you have a system of franchise political system and you don't have structure in place, you messed up our political system, and yet they go about deceiving people that we should just have two political parties. I just think these parties are not fit for purpose.
I agree with you.
Mr. Yori,
sorry.
It is the fault of the politicians.
You remember that when the Supreme Court gave judgment in the Zamfara case and it favored the PDP, they issued a statement. They say, this is a great day for democracy. It shows that the court system is working, and the court is what the hope of the ordinary man. Yes. Although we know they are not ordinary people. Now, the same people, when the judgment went against them in Mimo, hell was let loose. Yes. They went to the European Union. They went to the U.S. Embassy. They even organized protests in South Africa. You understand what I'm saying? But can I tell you something? The only evidence that shows that the Supreme Court is working is that the Supreme Court is an equal opportunity disappointer. It has disappointed the APC, it has disappointed the PDP. So once that an institution is performing that kind of role, know that it's working.
Let me take a call. There's a call coming in. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for calling in.
Good morning to you and all your guests in the studio.
Morning, Abba.
Uncle Yori, the reason why I don't agree with the judgment is something where we need to look. Why all the time when they judge matter, then say 2 out of 5 judges now make the decision. 7 judges and the 2 out of 7 they make the judgment. So it's something wrong with that. If the judgment now through something say now the judgment now think say now right thing, why all the judges why they not agree by the judgment? So that issue now we have to look. That I think corruption is there. That side now we have to look. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Can
Mr.
I explain
Abba.
it to him?
Please, can you just...
you want to explain?
No, what I just want to say quickly
this
on
is a
that.
matter of law. Let me get it from the lawyer.
Okay.
Once an issue is a constitutional matter, the requirement is that 5 or 7 justices will sit on it. Yeah. And each justice is allowed his opinion by way of law. However, there are times when the 7 justices or the 5 justices, we all agree on unanimous judgment. Only one person can deliver the lead judgment, and all others will sign on it. That's one. Now, there are cases also where 7 of the justices will not agree on the judgment. So you have 4 for, 3 against. Then it becomes a majority judgment. But it's still the judgment of the court. I think he needs to understand that. So the fact that all justices are not speaking does not mean some people may have been bribed. And that's why they're keeping quiet.
Yes.
No.
And that's the area I want to actually talk about, that which you have said about opinion. So the judges also, they are allowed to have their views on things.
Now, okay, these things sort of go into each other because as a comment that you made earlier, Curtis, about this thing could catch on. If we're not careful, this whole matter of approaching the Supreme Court on what, from a legal and judicial point of view, must be frivolities, you know. The National Assembly, this House of Representatives, coming up with this whole notion that, you know, we need to be included. After the Constitution has stated very, very clearly those that are allowed immunity, you know. Well, a prof has come on. Good morning, Professor Awoshokwe. Can you hear me, Prof?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Uncle Yori. I'm very happy for this program. Yes. I'm happy for this type of... this is a very good program, and we are very happy with you. The problem I'm having is that what Supreme Court has done is to teach Nigerians a lesson. Yes, the Supreme Court has come out to allay the fears of Nigerians.
Please continue. Don't listen to yourself, Prof.
If
Please
they continue with this type of stupid review, which the politicians are asking for, will be ridiculed in the world. I believe this time around, for example, the man in white.
Yes. Mr. Digba. Prof, don't listen to
Yes,
the echo.
The man in white mentioned primary. When they are doing primary, they are supposed to be sincere to themselves. But corruption and bribe will not let them do the right thing. This is the problem we are witnessing now. I believe the Supreme Court should be the last hope of human beings. So I'm happy with the judgment they have given. Politicians may not be happy, but the right thing. They are not supposed to review anything. Once the thing gets to Supreme Court and judgment is given, it's final. I think we have the respect for people that are there. They are not young lawyers with experience.
Thank you very much for calling in, Prof. Really appreciate your call. And I think the point has been made earlier that, look, even let's just go to that area of, some sort of a margin that, look, the Supreme Court may not necessarily always be right in all material particulars, but it is the Supreme Court, and there has to be an end to litigation. I've heard that from lawyers. There has to be an end to litigation. And the fact that these people were going to, in the words of the Supreme Court, actually try to desecrate the judiciary by frivolous, pure water kind of appeals.
The Supreme Court is not infallible because it's final.
Thank you.
It's not infallible because it's final.
Yes.
But it is still the final court.
It is still the final. That's the quote I was looking for.
And even when there is a miscarriage of justice, the court definitely over time, over a period of probably another panel,
yes,
probably will look at it and tweak it.
Indeed.
Let me give you a specific example.
Let me go on a quick break, but I'll remember the point because I'll come straight back to you. Stay with us, please. We're going to be right back. Okay, welcome back. A motley of issues with Curtis Adigba and Sunday Adenuga, as well as you out there. I interrupted you as I was going away. Would you like to pick up the point?
Yes, I was trying to say that even when the judgment of the Supreme Court is deemed to be wrong or perceived to be wrong, the court over time will work back on certain elements of that judgment, or you can have a law enacted to streamline that judgment.
Yes.
It has happened in the past. Look, we live in the same country, where the Supreme Court gave judgment to Ararome, saying you are the candidate of the PDP for the governorship election in Imo State. The PDP expelled Ararome, foisting on the Supreme Court the situation he could do nothing. And then when it came to Amechi and the PDP, the court just didn't stop there by saying Amechi is the candidate, because they know Amechi could be dismissed from the party, and then they can do nothing about it. They said votes belong to political parties. And since Amechi is the candidate of the party, swear him in. But in subsequent judgments, you see the Supreme Court trying to walk away from it because it was a judgment to deal with a specific situation. So but we are not saying the justices are perfect, but we must also understand that they are doing a very difficult job. Can you imagine a situation where we all play by the rules? The political parties carry out their responsibility. The candidates go out there and canvass for votes. Their supporters are reined in. We don't have toggery. We don't have ballots. And there's no argument about who has won the election. These cases will not go to court. Because the judges don't file the cases that come before them. Politicians do.
So can I help?
Sorry, guys. I really beg your pardon.
No problem.
Enough on this, because I think the thing has been sorted out. Because we wanted to move on to the other matter that I said at the top, which is the immunity thing in the House of Representatives. To be fair, I understand I got to take a call. Good morning, and thank you for calling in.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to appreciate the panel sitting there under yourself.
Thank you, sir.
We encourage the program. God bless you all in Jesus' name.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, my take is that what Supreme Court actually did yesterday, I think, is a lesson to every Nigerian, especially those who are the effects of and who are affected, who call themselves leaders that want to take power by force or by crook and hook or by ordinary. Is a lesson to them all The Supreme Court, as we know, is a court that whatever judgment they give is supposed to be taken as a final judgment or whatever they've said. But the issue here, they will now refer case and say they want a review on this. To me or Nigerians, it is not called for and it's not called for. So I really want to commend the effort of the Supreme Court on what they did yesterday. It's a big lesson to every politician and we Nigerians as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for calling in. And the fact that they slammed the lawyers with 10 million naira each should sort of give them cause for pause.
They were kind.
Yes.
If I sat on that court, I would dock those lawyers and ask them to give evidence, and then I will charge them with contempt in the face of the court and send them to the prison. No, we've gotten to that point in this country.
Yes. I mean, because it looks like the whole system is run amok.
You need to read some of the briefs that they filed. In one of those briefs, he said, look, the country is in trouble. The Supreme Court is perceived to be so corrupt. And then they say, we're giving you opportunity. If you review this judgment in our favor, we are giving you opportunity to redeem your image.
I mean, you know, it's almost...
Go and read those things.
For non-legal people like us, you know, as lawyers would like to put it, unlearned, I think is what you guys call us. Yeah. You know, you want to turn the whole country, not to mention the judiciary, into a laughingstock.
Yeah, and then you don't want to call me a fool in a diplomatic way and expect that I smile to the bank. Yeah. Okay, so the justices have done their job. We are coming back to say, first of all, they miscarried justice, they did the wrong thing, and by their action, the country is on fire. We are perceived to be very corrupt, you know, and a society that is...
Yeah, I think like...
Ibrahim is coming from Damaturu. Good morning, Mr. Ibrahim.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yari.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, good morning. My own is, I don't know why... Okay, I don't know why we always try to, like, base our political issues to go to Supreme Court. The problem I'm having here is that you will see a judgment every time, okay, especially this judgment that comes in, we say that judges are not perfect. Whenever I hear people saying that judges are not perfect, we tend to believe that something is wrong in their own judgment. That is why before we make statements, we say judges are not perfect. But judgments that goes from lower court to appeal court to Supreme Court, initially, all the adjudications have been done from the lower court and the appeal court. When judgment goes to Supreme Court, normally is not the process of adjudication. It's about finding the fair ground. Yeah. So in finding the fair ground, you cannot tell me in a situation whereby you take out 80% of the rightful votes, 80% completely, and then wipe it out and say that you are doing fairly to the justice. This is just, well, I don't know what to call it. And to be fair, in Zamfara, what happened in Zamfara is even more grievous than what happened in Bayelsa. In Zamfara, the process happened with the governorship election. There are seats that have been won through unopposed. So the political party there, the APC there, do their, their primaries through unopposed, most of the candidates. And will the Supreme Court tell me that primaries was not being done there? And the issue there is about the governorship election. And the governorship election was supposed to have been done after all the necessary elections, the House of Reps, the senatorial election, all of them had been down already before the governorship election. The governorship election was the one fixed at the tail end, and they've been jumping it up and down before the Supreme Court come and say that there was no election during the governorship election, which is totally not with other election. And the Supreme Court comes to nullify everything and say APC is not part of the election.
Okay.
Something is going on, and truly, the court has to check itself there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think I need to point
you know
out
what?
what
I think we're going to have
happened.
to stay on this whole matter because I want to come away from it, but people want to stay on it, so let it be.
Okay,
You know,
now,
now,
here's sorry, Salga. The Zamfara issue, I think he needs to understand that he mischaracterized what actually happened or the facts. What happened was there was an order of court preventing APC from carrying out primaries. They went ahead in spite of that. Okay, so in the eye of the court, the primaries from which these candidates emerge never heard.
because this is the thing with the
You
law.
understand?
There are technicalities
So
involved.
when he now said, you know, other positions that they merged, the governorship, and then they came and wiped out everything.
Yes.
You know, look,
because there's this difference between normal sight and the sight of the law.
And
In the eyes of the law,
and I'm sure
nothing happened.
I'm sure he will remember.
Even
that.
though there was a meeting and they did whatever they wanted to do, but in the eyes of the law, nothing
I'm sure
happened.
he will remember that the first court that the matter went to said APC should not even be allowed to contest that election at all. Then APC appealed, and the Court of Appeal said, put them on the ballot. Few days to the election, they were put on the ballot. And then the other party went to the Supreme Court. Okay, and the Supreme Court sided with the lower court. Like what happened in Bayelsa, when the first court had said, this ticket is tainted. You have a problem with this ticket. You understand? And then the Court of Appeal said, no, go ahead and contest the election. The Supreme Court again set aside the verdict of the Court of Appeal and sided with the lower court. So when these things happen and people don't understand, then they said, oh, you know, the court is, the Supreme Court, the justices are
They're being
corrupt.
inconsistent
Now,
and all of that.
there's one funny thing that I have found out in the last few days.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mr. George has come on the line and he's been waiting for a while. Good morning, Mr. George, and thank you for holding on.
Thank you, Uncle Yori, and good morning to everybody there.
Sure.
Uncle Yori, why I agree that the Supreme Court should not be mocked in any way, the Supreme Court itself should upgrade its own integrity. I'm seeing a picture of a father that smokes Indian hemp and gives a silly instruction to his children. The children refuse to obey the silly instruction, and the father comes back and, you know, bully them. Don't you know I'm your father? That's the picture I'm seeing in this case. The Supreme Court that gives a judgment that is not seen to be free and fair should expect what they are seeing now. Uncle, you remember in 2015 elections, the elections in Rivers, Delta, and Akwa Ibom, all of us saw that there were no elections there. The Tribunal Court of Appeal nullified those elections. The Supreme Court turned around and gave those elections to a party that they like. In a case where the Supreme Court brings out the wife of a PDP chieftain to come and pronounce a judgment in a state of her region, which is seen to be unfair, you don't expect people to just sit back and expect the Supreme Court seems to be bullying us. We know that they are Supreme Court judges, but they shouldn't bully us. They are to serve us. I have a thinking that the Supreme Court thinks that they can do anything and get away with it, even when it is not fair. I am sorry to disagree with that.
Okay.
In some cases, what they have done to these lawyers now, in some cases, it could be done. In this particular one, Uncle Yori, I do not agree with it.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think the Supreme Court should also upgrade its own integrity. You have to put your house in order first before you start asking people to respect you. You don't demand for respect. You earn it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Mr. Adenuga, do you have any?
Yes,
because this seems to be more in line, if I understood you correctly, with the kind of thing you've been trying to express.
Yeah, the name of our party, like we have it, is Because of Our Tomorrow. And like what we've been telling people, we've actually been looking at the political landscape in Nigeria. And we realized that the buck stops at the politician. And to do that effectively, you must have a proper leadership structure. And that was why I challenged APC and PDP. And that's why you're having all this mess in the country. that even the lawyer or the Supreme Court were dragging into it, probably maybe just few percentage culpable, if you want to put it that way. The majority of the buck stops with us. Because like Mr. Curtis said, if the politicians, probably with the help of INEC, I'm sorry I have to bring INEC in again, because I've told them many times, some of their senior leaders, that what you guys do, you seems not to realize you are a democracy regulator in the country. Your job is just like a CBN saying to the bankers, you can do anything you like with the monies of depositors. You cannot just allow politicians, political parties, to be running wild. You know, like some of these issues that we are having now is simply because in most of these political parties, there are just no structure. I will tell you, we were just registered just barely a year ago, less than a year. And calls that we receive every time, it's all about someone just calling you, nowhere. He just says, oh, he knows you don't have a political structure in Zamfara, for example. He wants to be your chairman. And the first thing I will ask, I beg your pardon, are you our member? He said, no. So you have not even. So what do you know about Boot Party? This is the system, I'm afraid, that we need to tell Nigerians. This is the system we run in our country political system. And that's why we keep saying that, look, PDP, APC, whatever you call yourself, the structure you are putting in place or you are thinking you are doing can never deliver good governance to Nigeria. And our own goal as a political party is to develop Nigeria and Nigerians. And that's why we have a bottom-up leadership approach. It doesn't matter who you are in Nigeria. If you want to join Boot Party and you want to join at the party leadership structure, you are going to start from the ward. And that's fine now. Okay, so what we're saying all together here is this. We need to all take task. And if possible, let's beg them. I'm not trying to insult PDP or APC or INEC. What we're just saying is that for heaven's sake, this is the only country we have. Okay. We can't keep doing it this way.
Thank you
We
very
can't.
Much. We have this caller in from the UK. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, Wale. Thank you very much for calling in.
Yeah. You're welcome, sir. I understand that Mr. Adenoga is trying to sell his party to the whole country, which is very good. But for him to say that APC or PDP have no structure, that might be far from being correct. They have structure. Those parties have structures in place, but they have over-ambitious. The only problem is that they have over-ambitious people who want to this thing, I cannot get it easily, so I have to go through every dubious means to make sure that I realize my ambition. That is the problem we have with our politicians.
We dropped that call.
Let me use the opportunity to respond to a few things that Mr. Judge said.
Yes.
See, the reality is that the Supreme Court has found himself...
About the Supreme Court,
yes,
justices chancing us.
In a situation
yes.
where if they do, they are damned. If they don't, they are damned. Don't forget that some years ago, the DSS raided the homes of some of the justices in the night. And then the CGN himself, the Chief Justice of the Federation, had issues of code of conduct and all that. The same people who attacked the government for saying, how dare you say these justices can be corrupt in the first place at all, are the same people attacking the justices now and accusing them of corruption. Multiple conflicting views. One issue. The fact is that I'm not sitting here to say that the justices are angels, either from the point of view of morality or from the point of view of their knowledge of the law. Mistakes can be made. But the mere fact that the two courts below are judged a case differently than the Supreme Court did does not mean the justices are corrupt. That's why they are the highest appellate system. They are the top of the court system. Yeah. They are able to look at what other justices or judges may have missed from the lower court. And when we talk about corruption of judges in Nigeria, I want Nigerians to know something. Judges don't corrupt themselves. Judges don't bribe themselves. It's lawyers and their clients who approach judges. And when they outbribe each other, and then you begin to hear all this noise about judges being corrupt. That's the truth of the matter.
Benga has come on the line. Good morning, Mr. Benga.
Good morning, Mr. Yori. My name is Benga from Abuja.
Thank you very much for calling in.
You see, the government of yesterday, I'm very happy about it because I didn't expect APC to join PDP in that dance of shame, looking for a review. They should have let PDP to continue all this, that from shame, going to embassy, going to this and that. And when they are filed, because they filed the IMO review first, if that thing had been done, they will have, PDP will have said, yeah, we know it, that judiciary is under the pillar of Buhari. They should allow them to have their open shame that they went and joined that wagon. Now look at what happened to them. But it's all good because now PDP now I'm looking and waiting for them. If they will still continue in that trend to go to Supreme Court to ask for review of IMO or presidency of this and that, we now know where our problem is. That they are determined to destroy and recruit the judiciary and the Supreme Court. They have intimidated them, they have harassed them, and if they dare it, I'm telling you, the knock they will receive will be heavier than what they give APC. They were asked to pay 100 million to all the lawyers of the other party. But I believe that they will take caution. They will not do that because the signal is there. They have told them, we are not here for jamboree.
Yes.
But I'm waiting for them. They still go ahead on the 3rd of March. We are waiting for them.
The man said, thank you very much, Mr. GBENGA.
It's not the justice on the court. Anyway,
it's not the justice on the court. He says, I'm waiting for them.
But it goes to show the passion. You see, look, for whatever everybody says, the public has a right to have a sense of direction, to know that we're not a totally disorderly society. And when you have this whole structure of jurisprudence and adjudication, and it ends, as you were pointing out, at the apex, at the Supreme Court, and people are trying to ridicule that, it's not the Supreme Court you're ridiculing. You're ridiculing all of us.
You remember the famous case of Gore and George Bush?
Yes,
over the Florida elections.
Yeah.
Now, the matter was still in the Florida Supreme Court when an appeal went to the United States Supreme Court. And the justices looked at it and said, listen, there must be an end to litigation. This process must stop. The country cannot be kept in abeyance.
Yes.
We have to do a handover of government. Gore said he didn't agree with the judgment of the court, but he will respect it. That is what is expected.
Yes.
When you lose an election, we know it's a painful thing to lose an election. It's a painful thing to lose it the way and manner Mr. Leon lost it in Bayelsa.
Yes.
However, you put the future of the institution and the country above political expediency. And then you try to do what is right. Look, he's still a young man. Just 4 years from now, he does it the right way, and he can still be governor of that state.
Well, okay, I'm hearing that we've really almost run out of time. But one of those people have withdrawn, those people that were lining up to go to the Supreme Court for review. I can't remember which. There's so much fog index, but I understand that one of them...
They should still be penalized for filing in the first place. Not even, I'm telling you.
Even if they have seen if they've seen the line now. Okay, Mr. YAQUB, good morning, sir.
Yeah, let me just make it quickly.
Very briefly, please, because...
I totally disagree with Mr. Curtis Adiba for saying that judges are not corrupted. We remember Chief Justice Chukwudi, Justice Isola Williams. Those are the great judges that you can never even try to bribe. If they give you money as a judge.
Yeah, but Mr. YAQUB,
I never said
I can't remember him saying that. So. I can't remember him saying so. But the point is, Mr. YAQUB, that it is an exception when a judge is corrupt. It is an exception.
And even when they are corrupt, they don't bribe themselves. People take money to them.
Okay, sorry, let me just make my point quickly. You see, I don't blame the judge that's giving that very particular party on the ACC calling for the queue. Because the problem is from the political party. And then the question now is that even the INEC, because the reason is this, when they send the nominee form to INEC was paid money to do the diligence and they do their investigation every time they are sending to them. Whether the response they send to them is a good in order. Okay, another thing is
but YAQUB, INEC can't disqualify. INEC cannot disqualify a bit.
The political party, they were the problem, and then you cannot rule out the corruption because they always bribe themselves out of all this kind of a thing to make sure that as one of the callers says,
Matu Gogofa. So it is a deterrent for them. It is a lesson for all the political parties.
Okay.
It is basically like they should go to the Supreme Court to go and do the review, or to go to United Nations to go and call for the review. They will get their own day and friends.
All right, then. Thank you very much for calling in.
I could just quickly say to YAQUB
15 seconds.
It probably summarized some of the things I've been saying here. Okay. That I could have come here and start defending because I'm in the part of the political team in the country. But the reality is just this. It is our fault at the political level.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. You know, that's the point that you made. Very briefly.
I think in closing, I will say that Nigerians need to know that after 2007, INEC can no longer disqualify a candidate because the court said it's the responsibility of the party. Once the party screens a candidate and puts the candidate forward, INEC has no choice. Recently, we saw what happened in Kogi, where the SDP candidate, Natasha Akoti, went to court, and the court said INEC had no power to disqualify a candidate.
Okay.
So
we've got to leave it there, but I want to thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Curtis Adigba, as always, lawyer and public affairs analyst, and Mr. Sunday Adenuga. We knew knowing him for the first time. Chairman, leader, Boot Party.
Because of our tomorrow.
Because of our tomorrow. Yes. But we didn't get a chance to get into it, and in any case, the time is not now. Yeah,
that'll be another time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so that's our program. Thank you very much for calling in and contributing to it, and please join us tomorrow if you can. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.